Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the class. In the previous class, we were discussing the informations which are given in the boxes of the chapter development, and some cartoons are also there which need to be discussed. And we were discussing decentralized planning, which was adopted in Kerala, and we saw this Kerala model was a type of planning which was totally decentralized. And in this planning, in this model of planning, the focus was given on education, health, land reform, food distribution, and poverty alleviation. So we see that Kerala was very successfully able to achieve the many aims, many objectives like total literacy, long life expectancy, then low infant and female mortality rate, then low birth rate, and access to medical care. All these aims, which are associated with the human development, have been achieved in Kerala in a very successful manner. Though Kerala was not having a very high per capita income and it was not having any industrial base. Still, it achieved all this because of the government. The government focused on the development of the human resources, and for this, there was a focus on the decentralized planning. And in this way of planning, I told you yesterday also, the strategy was bottom up. The planning was done at the bottom level, and then it was implemented from the upper level. And what we see in the centralized planning, what is done, it is a up bottom approach, top bottom approach. The planning is done at the top level. The top leaders of the country, the economists, the experts are there to take decisions regarding the economic development of the country, and then it is implemented at the bottom level. But in the Kerala model, the decisions regarding the planning, regarding the economic development of the country, was taken by the people. People took direct participation through voluntary citizens organizations, and this proved to be very effective. And the state has also taken initiative to involve people in making plans at the panchayat level, block level, and district level. So this is a very good example of decentralized planning. Then we have discussed about JC Kumarappa, and now we will discuss this about this movie, Pathir Panchali. So this film, actually, at that time, we are talking about the decade of 1950s and 60s. Uh, in that decade, the most important problem that country was facing was poverty. Poverty was the biggest challenge for the country, and there were effort from the part of the government to remove this poverty, though the government was not very successful in achieving this aim. And so we see that so many movies in the film industry were made for keeping in view this main theme, that is poverty. So this movie is Pathir Panchali is the story of a poor family in Bengal village and how they struggle to survive because of poverty, because of lack of resources. They are not able to survive properly. In this movie, Durga is there, who is the daughter of Harihar and Sarbajya, and Durga and his younger brother Apu, they goes on enjoying life oblivious of the struggles and poverty. Though there was poverty, there was a struggle still. Durga and Appu, who are the kids of Harihar and Sarbajya, they are enjoying their lives. Then what happens that mm, mm, the film shows the simplicity of uh, life. The film revolves around the simple life and the efforts of the mother of Durga and Appu to maintain the family. How the mother is trying hard to maintain the family, to fulfill the basic needs of the kids. So the struggle is shown in the movie, and it narrates the desire and disappointment of the poor family. How every human being is having some desires in their lives, and so the poor uh, the kids or the people belonging to poor family, they are also having so many desires, but out of poverty, because of poverty, they are not able to fulfill those desires, and this causes disappointment. And so this how their desire and disappointments have been shown in the movie. And what happens that during monsoon, Durga falls ill and dies while her father is away. And when Harika returns with a gift for Durga, that was a sari, and he found that Durga is no more. So in this way, the movie is trying to arouse the emotion of the people, how poor people are facing this type of problem, how much emotional problems are going on, how much emotionally they are devastated because of this kind of happenings. So this is shown in the movie, and mm, film because of this, the film won so many awards nationally and internationally, including the president's gold and silver medal for the year 1955. So nowadays we don't see this type of movie, because at present it is the poverty is not such a big problem, though poverty is still there, but the condition which was prevailing in the decade of 1950s and 60s, that problem was completely different, that situation was completely different. So in this way, the movies are depicting the problems of the society. So this is about the movie Partner Panchali. And then we see, this is the cartoon. In this, what we see that this is our Prime Minister Nehru, and he is balancing this. Uh, he is balancing between the private sector and the public sector. Here you can see these are our national leaders who are in favor of the public sector. These are Lal Bahadur Shastri, then Ajit Prasad Jain, Kailas Nath Karju, Jagjeevan Ram, T.T. Krishnamachari, Swarna Singh, Guljarilal Nanda, and B.K. Keskar. All these people are there. They are supporting public sector. They want that the public sector should play larger role. The public sector should play a greater role in the economy. So they are so they are pressurizing the prime minister to make such policies, to plan the economy in such a way that the public sector must have a substantial role to play. And then we see this he is depicting the big industrialist, and he is favoring the private sector, and he is of the opinion that the government must adopt such policies and plans that private sector should be given larger role to play in the economy of the country. So this is the we have seen the major controversies, how the major what were the major controversies during the period of 1950s and 60s. The one of the most important controversy was the public sector versus the private sector. So this cartoon is depicting that controversy. And now we will discuss uh, government campaign reaches the village. It's about we have seen that in India, we were not independent in the matter of food grain production. What happened that the rate of the growth of population was very high, but the rate of the growth in agricultural production was not uh, so high. So what happened that their food problem was arising, and so the government was very much keen on mm, mm, uh, persuading the farmers to focus on more and more production. Uh, I told you earlier also when we were discussing land reforms that why we required, why we needed land reforms. What was the need of land reforms? Land reforms was needed because in our country there was an unequal distribution of land resources. There was very few landlords who were big jamindars who were having so much land, and where most of the farmers in the village were small farmers who were having very small size of holding, or they were landless farmers who were not having any kind of land with them. So what happens in such situation, this type of situation causes low productivity because the jamindars are having so much land, they are not paying attention to all the parts of the land. They are not doing agricultural activities in all the parts of the land. So what happens that many land which are owned by the landowners, many part of the land uh, uh, is left barren. So what happens? Actually, this causes low agricultural productivity. So the on the one hand, government was making effort to bring land reforms, but on the other hand, it was also campaigned by the government to produce more grain. The government was campaigning, the government trying to influence the farmers to grow more and more grain. And for that purpose, what was done? For that purpose, government wrote slogans. Government pasted posters, and speeches were also delivered in order to inspire, in order to make them persuade the farmers for producing more and more grains. So the message given to the farmers was that if they did not want to grow more grain for themselves, then they should do so for the nation. They they are the very big landowners. They are not in need of growing more grain, but they should grow more and more grains, not for themselves but for the nation. So this was the message which was given by the government, and this message was given by making attractive posters, by giving writing slogans, and then giving speeches. And this extract which we find here is this is the translation from Rag Darbari, which was written by Sri Lal Shukla, and this is about one particular village. The name of the village is Sirpalganj, that is in Uttar Pradesh. So uh, the posters were stuck in various places to induce farmers to grow grain for the nation. And what we see that the farmers were greatly influenced by the combined effect of the speeches and posters. And even most simple-minded cultivator began to feel the likelihood of there was some ulterior motive behind the whole campaign. So what happened that the farmers were getting influenced by this speeches and posters, and sometimes it also happened that the farmers started to feel that was is there any other motive behind this campaign, why the government is uh, why the government wants the farmers to grow more and more, and for that purpose why the government is doing so much efforts. So that was not a matter of concern. Actually, a matter of concern is this, that the production was low, and in order to persuade the farmers to grow more and more grains, not for themselves but for the country, the government started many type of campaign. And here you can see one advertisement is described, which had become especially well known in Sirpalganj. And in this advertisement, what was showed? It showed a healthy farmer with urban turban. A healthy farmer is there, and that farmer has wrapped turban around his head, and in his ear there are earrings, and he has worn a quilted jacket. And what is he doing? He is cutting a tall crop of wheat with a sickle. And then a woman was standing behind him, who was very pleased with herself. The main purpose is to show that the woman is very happy, and she was laughing. And in this way the message was given that you can also be like the farmers who are shown in the advertisement. And what we see that below and above the picture was written in both the languages, in Hindi and in English: grow more grain. So it was written in both the language. What was the purpose of using both the language? The purpose was that there were some farmers who really wore earrings, quilted jacket, and they were also knowing English language. So English language was used to influence these farmers. English language was used to win over these farmers. And there were many farmers who were knowing Hindi only. So Hindi was also written, the slogan was written in Hindi also. And the farmers will be influenced by the Hindi version also. And there were many other farmers who were not knowing any of the language, neither English nor Hindi. So how will they get the message? They will get the message through the poster. They will recognize the figure of man and the laughing woman. They will understand that if they will also start cultivation, then they will also become happy like them. So the government hoped that as soon as they saw the man and the laughing woman, farmer would turn away from the poster and start growing more grain like men possessed. So this was the campaign which was started by the government in order to increase the agricultural output of the country. Now we will see the situation which arose in Bihar in the 1960s, and that was known as food crisis. Actually, it was not only the problem of Bihar, but the whole country was suffering from this food crisis. But what we find that in Bihar, the problem was very grave. The degree of problem was very grave in Bihar, and we have discussed this earlier also, that the decade of 1960 was very dangerous, especially the year 1966, because during this period the country has faced many problems. First of all, we see that between 1965 and 1967 severe droughts occurred in many parts of the country. So because of droughts, what happened, that there was food scarcity of crops could not be grown. And then we see that during this decade, in the decade of 1960, the country faced uh, two wars, one with China and the another with Pakistan. And In this situation, what happened that a severe food shortage and famine like condition arose in many parts of the country. And we will discuss the situation which was prevailing in Bihar at that time. It was in Bihar that the food crisis was most acutely felt as the state faced a near famine situation. The situation which was faced by Bihar was near famine. The food shortage was significant in all districts of Bihar. In all the districts of Bihar, there was food shortage. But what we see that in 9 districts, which were producing less than half of their normal output, whatever they used to produce in during this period, these 9 districts produced half of their normal output. And in these 9 districts, 5 districts were such which were producing less than one third of what they normally produce. So you can understand the problem. You can understand the degree of the problem, the severity of the problem, that 9 districts are producing less than half of their normal output, and in these 9, 5 were producing less than one third of their normal production. So this is really going to create a big trouble for the people, and that happened in Bihar. Food deprivation subsequently led to acute and widespread malnutrition. Malnutrition will occur because people are not getting food according to their need. Whatever is their requirement, they are not getting food according to that requirement, and this will cause malnutrition, and that happened in Bihar. It was estimated that the calorie intake dropped from 2200 per capita per day. What is actually there is requirement of 2450 50 calorie per day, but in Bihar, people were able to get only 1200 calorie. Not in complete Bihar, but in most of the region, this condition was prevailing, that the people were able to get only 1200 calorie per capita per day. And in the previous situation, in the normal situation, people were able to get 2200 per capita per day, but now they were getting only 1200. So it resulted in malnutrition, and that malnutrition resulted in deaths. So what happened that in Bihar, in 1967, death rate was 34% higher than the number of deaths that occurred in the following year. In the after years, in the after 1967, whatever deaths were happening in 1967, 34% higher death rate was recorded if we compare it with the following years. So this was the situation in Bihar, and all this scarcity of food led to the price rise. Whenever there will be less supply of food grains, then it will cause a price rise. So food price also hit a high in Bihar during the year, and even when compared with other North Indian states, if we compare the prices of food grain in other North Indian states, we find that in Bihar the price was very high. And why this price was very high? Because at that time our government had zoning policy. What is this zoning policy? Zoning policy is according to this policy, what happens that trade of food is not possible from one state to another. So this causes variation in price in different states. Now the government has abandoned this zoning policy, but at that time we have zoning policy, and because of this zoning policy, there could not be trade from other states. Trade of food cannot happen from other states. So if there is a scarcity in one state, then it will simply caused the price rise. And the availability of food was reduced very much. So in this situation, the poorest section of the society suffered the most, because the middle class and the upper class uh, can spend more money in order to get food, but the poor section cannot spend money because they are not having the money. They must have money to spend it. They are not having the money to spend for the purpose of getting food. So the suffered most class was the poorest section of the society, and this caused all these caused higher death rate. So the food crisis had many consequences. The government had to import wheat and had to accept foreign aid, mainly from the US. Now, the first priority of the planners was to somehow attain self sufficiency in the food. So, because of this food crisis, in order to solve this problem of food crisis, the government had to import food grains, especially wheat. The government had to import it, and government had to accept foreign aid also. And this foreign aid was we were getting this foreign aid from US, and in lieu of this foreign aid, the US was pressurizing our country to change our economic policy according to the interest of the US. So now our planners were having the first priority to attain self-sufficiency in food grain production. And what was the result of this food crisis? The most important result of this food crisis was the starting of Green Revolution, which I have discussed with you. Now, we will see this. Srikanth still remembers the struggle his elder brother had to undergo in order to get the monthly supply of ration for the ration shop. Their family was totally dependent on the supplies from the ration shop for rice, oil, and kerosene. Many times his brother would stand in the queue for an hour or so, only to find out that the supply had ended, and he would have to come later when fresh supply arrives. So this is the situation which is given regarding the problems of the poor. The people who are living below poverty line, they are not able to fulfill their basic needs, and in order to help, in order to give support to the poorer section of the society, the government uh, has started many plans, and under this one of such plan is a public distribution system, about which you have studied in your class 9th syllabus. It was there. Public distribution system. Under this system, what happens that the government procure the food grains from the farmers at higher price. Okay, and then these food grains are distributed to the people belonging to below poverty line people through the ration shop. We can say it ration shop, or we can say it public distribution system, or fair price shop. That is also a name given to the ration shop. So the government distribute these food grains to the BPL, below poverty line people, through this ration shop, and basic things like rice, oil, and kerosene are provided by the government in these shop. And for in order to get this in order to get these items from the ration shop, a person must have the ration card. And in presently many changes have occurred in this system of ration card and all, and now it has become more transparent and better for the for fulfilling the needs of the poor people. So this is the, and you must know that when the government provide essential items through the public distribution system, then its prices are very low. But then there are so many corrupt practices uh, going on inside this public distribution system. The quality is not good. And then the shops are often closed, and the genuine person is not able to get the food. So all these problems are there. We don't need to discuss them in detail now. This is the last information regarding Amul, which will be discussed in the next class.